In the early days of March 1579, a storm was gathering over the Low Countries, not of wind or rain, but of steel, fire, and ambition. Marching across the cold landscape, a powerful Spanish army advanced toward the fortified Dutch city of Maastricht, a place that had become far more than just another stronghold. Each was a symbol of rebellion, resistance, and defiance against one of the most powerful empires in the world. What followed would become one of the most intense and brutal sieges of the 16th century. For weeks, the city would endure relentless bombardment, underground warfare, wave after wave of attacks. Yet, against all odds, its defenders refused to yield even when their walls were shattered and their strength nearly gone. This is the story of the Siege of Maastricht, a kingdom in crisis. To understand the siege, one must first understand the chaos that engulfed the Spanish Netherlands in the years leading up to it. By the mid-1570s, the region was already deeply unstable. The Dutch provinces, once loyal to the Spanish crown, had grown increasingly resentful of heavy taxation, religious persecution, a centralized control imposed by King Philip II of Spain. What began as unrest had evolved into open rebellion. Spain responded with force. In 1575, Spanish armies launched a renewed campaign to crush the uprising. Initially, their progress seemed promising. Towns fell as Spanish troops pushed deeper into rebel territory than ever before. But success came at a cost. The empire itself was beginning to crack. That same year, Philip II declared bankruptcy. The consequences were immediate and devastating. Soldiers went unpaid for months, then years. Discipline collapsed. Loyalty turned fragile. What followed was not just war, it was chaos. In 1576, after the sudden death of the Spanish governor, authority disintegrated completely. Mutinous troops roamed freely, looting cities and attacking civilians. These violent uprisings became known as the Spanish Fury, culminating in the horrific sack of Antwerp, where thousands were slaughtered in just a few days. The message was clear: Spain was losing control. Unity. A division faced with this breakdown, the Dutch provinces did something unprecedented. They united. In late 1576, they signed a historic agreement demanding the withdrawal of all foreign troops and the restoration of local rights. For a brief moment, it seemed that peace or at least stability might return, but unity proved fragile. Religious divisions soon split the provinces into two opposing camps. In the north, Protestant regions rallied together in resistance. In the south, Catholic provinces leaned back toward Spanish authority. By 1579, the Netherlands were no longer a single front, they were divided. And Spain was ready to exploit that division. Para restore order, Philip II needed more than soldiers. He needed a leader. That leader was Alexander Farnese, a commander of exceptional skill, discipline, and determination. Calm under pressure and brilliant strategy, Farnese was tasked with reclaiming the rebellious provinces and re-establishing Spanish dominance. His plan was clear: secure key strongholds, control strategic routes, and crush resistance one city at a time. At the center of that plan stood Maastricht, a fortress of defiance. Maastricht was no ordinary city. Positioned along the River Meuse, it controlled vital trade routes and served as a gateway between regions. Whoever held Maastricht held power. The Spanish had once controlled it. But in 1577, the city fell into Dutch hands and became a key asset in the rebellion. Now, it had to be taken back. Inside the city, preparations had already begun. The defenders knew what was coming. To strengthen their position, they were joined by a skilled military engineer, a man experienced in the art of siege warfare. Under his guidance, Maastricht's defenses were reinforced with urgency and precision. Walls were repaired, moats were cleared, weak points were strengthened with advanced fortifications. Hidden tunnels were dug to detect enemy mining operations. By the time the Spanish army approached, Maastricht was ready. The siege begins. The first sign of danger came not from the main army, but from fast-moving cavalry units that swept through the surrounding countryside. Villagers fled, seeking refuge inside the city walls, swelling the population and putting immediate pressure on food supplies. Days later, the full Spanish force arrived. Nearly 20 men surrounded Maastricht, establishing camps and fortifications and a tightening hedge around the city. The siege had begun. As was customary, the Spanish Commando offered terms: surrender now, and the city would be spared. The defenders refused, and so, the guns opened fire. The early days of the siege were defined by artillery and engineering. Spanish cannons thundered against the walls, while trenches slowly crept closer till the defaces. Every meter gained came at a cost, as defenders launched frequent counterattacks to disrupt construction efforts. But the real battle was not just above ground, it was below. Spanish forces began digging tunnels beneath the city's defenses, aiming to plant explosives and collapse key structures from below. In response, the defenders fought back with their own underground network. Listening posts detected vibrations in the earth. Counter-tunnels intercepted enemy miners. Explosions echoed beneath the surface as both sides battled in darkness. At Chichimes, the struggle turned almost surreal. Boiling water, smoke, and suffocating gases were used to drive enemies from tunnels. Were fought in shadows unseen, but deadly. Clash at the walls as the siege intensified. The Spanish launched their first major assault. After days of bombardment, a breach was opened in the outer defenses. Spanish troops surged forward, climbing over the broken walls, pushing into the city's outer fortifications. For a moment, it seemed the defenses might collapse, but the defenders had anticipated this. Hidden artillery positions opened fire, trapping the attackers in a devastating crossfire. The assault faltered, then it broke. The Spanish were forced to retreat. It was a significant victory for the defenders, but only a temporary one. A war of endurance. As days turned into weeks, the siege became a test of endurance. Heavy rains turned trenches into mud. Supplies dwindled. Exhaustion spread through both armies. Inside Maastricht, conditions grew increasingly desperate. Food became scarce. Rations were reduced. Civilians suffered alongside soldiers. Yet despite the hardship, the defenders refused to surrender. Instead, they did something remarkable. Even after parts of the outer defenses were lost, they began constructing a second defensive line inside the city, an open rampart designed to prolong the fight. It was a bold move, a sign of their determination. Engineering a victory. Realizing that direct assaults were costly, the Spanish shifted tactics. Rather than relying solely on brute force, they turned to large-scale engineering. One of the most ambitious projects of the siege soon took shape: a massive artillery platform towering over the battlefield. From this elevated position, Spanish cannons could fire down into the city, bypassing traditional defenses. The effect was devastating. Walls crumbled. Defensive positions were shattered. The balance of power began to shift. The final struggle. By late June, the situation inside Maastricht was critical. The defenders were exhausted. Their numbers had dwindled. Food was nearly gone. Still, they fought on. When the final assault came, it came with overwhelming force. Spanish troops poured through the breaches, clashing with defenders in brutal close combat. Every street became a battlefield. Every step forward was contested. For a brief moment, resistance held, but it could not last. The defenders were simply too few, too tired, too hungry. The lines broke, and the city fell. Aftermath. What followed was tragedy. As was common in warfare of the Chime, the victorious army was allowed to plunder the city. Violence spread rapidly. Fires broke out. Civilians were caught in the chaos. For days, Maastricht endured the consequences of its resistance. Yet even in defeat, its defense left a lasting impression.